I am back home and ready to talk about Big Brother 26, although I am tired, so I'm only going to talk about some of the more interesting things that have been happening over the past 2 days in the House, starting with Tucker winning the veto after volunteering himself on the block as a pawn again, which is, I think, starting to slightly hurt his game because, as we've already discussed, it's already a bad idea to volunteer yourself on the block. But Tucker has a lot of good relationships in the house, only because I do find him likable, and I think the cast finds him likable. He's not in many of these million of alliances going on, which I think also works for him. However, to continue to show yourself as this big competitor, which he wants to do, does grow your target. So if he continues on this track, it's only a matter of time because before he does become the main target. But there's even a lot more to talk about with Tucker's game and his chaotic gameplay, although it's probably the most entertaining gameplay going on thus far in the house. We also need to touch upon Joseph's delusions the other night, where the collective alliance is concerned. Um, I find it hard to wade through all these alliances and know what's really real and what's really fake. It doesn't help that so many people keep trying to change alliances, bring people into alliances that weren't in them in the first place. At the end of the day, most of these alliances are not real. And I would go so far as to say I don't think there's any solid alliance in the house right now, which is a lot different than a lot of past seasons, which is why I think I'm enjoying the season so far. I've talked about this last time. I think the game is so fluid right now that almost anything can happen, although that's also probably not true because although the game is fluid, there is a lot of passive gameplay going on. So where Joseph is concerned, I feel like each player has to choose the alliance that they think is real, and Joseph clearly thinks the collective alliance is real, or at least did the other night when he called a meeting for the alliance and then led the meeting and talked the most in the meeting. So I guess he thinks he's controlling the game, or at least did at that point think he was controlling the game the other night. But if he can't realize that he's sitting down with all these people, a lot of them are unenthused, and he's talking like almost the entire time, then his social game isn't very good. I think that was a clear sign that Joseph is not only a little delusional, but his social game is lacking a lot. And that happens a lot with these super fans. I mean, I've talked my shit about Quinn, and we're going to talk more here in a bit. But Joseph, too, big super fan. With these super fans, they know the strategy so well, or at least they think they do. So they try and emulate past strategies, or they think they know everything in the game. But at the end of the day, it's a social game, and if you're lacking the social abilities to maneuver right in the game or to pick up what others are putting down, then you're failing. And Joseph, I think he was under the radar for the first 2 weeks. I didn't really talk about Joseph that often. There was a point in time where he had some good reads. Right now, he's lost for sure. And I think he's shown himself this week to be another delusional super fan in that house. We already have Angela, Quinn, now Joseph. The super fans failing all over the place. Quinn continues to be the biggest failure because of his whole power. Because you have Cedric and Chelsea, who started the game with the downgrade where they were just not safe that first week, had no real power, but now they've won back to back HOHs. They've spent their time, playing a good game to this point, although I find Cedric's HOH to be bad, which I'll touch upon. And I think I already did touch upon in my last video, but there's more to talk about there. Quinn started with this upgrade, and with it being useful only as a secret, to tell people about your power was a huge mistake. I've always talked about this on this channel. even before I talked about Big Brother, back when I first started my own games on this channel, which, by the way, a new one will be starting in about a little over 2 weeks. Um, but I had secret powers in those games, still do. And I would get on the podcast about those games and talk about, well, if you're talking about your secret power, it basically kind of makes your power useless, or at least weakens it very much. In Quinn, this is the perfect example of that, because Quinn telling Angela was already bad, but telling Kimo seems to be the fatal mistake of Quinn's, possible his whole game. His whole game could crumble because he told Kimo about his power that should have been staying a secret. And it turns out Kimo only told Tucker about Quinn's power because he has this crush on Tucker. And an aside, I hate that they only cast one, maybe sometimes two people from the LGBTQ community on this show. So Kimo has all these crushes, well, has a crush on a straight guy. And it kind of works against him now because there's not anybody else on the show that he could actually have a showmance with, even though that would be a change of pace for this show that likes their showmances, but it is CBS, so they won't ever take a real chance to kind of wade outside of the usual thinking outside the box with their showmances. But, Chelsea got a lot of flack for her alleged big crush on Cam. But Kimo's crush on Tucker looking like a big mistake, not only for Quinn telling him about the power, but Kimo's game as well, because Kimo's already a questionable player for me. Like I've talked about in the past, he's good at getting information, but when it actually comes to using that information well, or using that information to have some semblance of a non-passive game, Kimo usually fails at that thus far. Him telling Tucker has created a snowball effect because Tucker's gone around telling more people or about Quinn's power. It's also made Tucker realize that Angela was telling him the truth, like last week when she was trying to allude to Tucker that she knew the power and that Quinn had it. And now Tucker told Cam that Quinn's the one with the power and Quinn's not telling people. And of course, Cam went to Cedric, who's the HOH, to tell Cedric that Quinn has the power. And it's created this distrust because there's supposed to be that Pentagon alliance, another fake alliance, really, with Cam, Chelsea, Cedric, and Quinn, and Brooklyn, who I never talk about. Brooklyn's playing a good game, I guess, because she's never really that big of a target, but I don't talk about her because I don't care about her at all, to be honest. She's just there for me so far. Maybe someday I'll give her some credit, but that day is not today. Tucker comes up with this plan today because I think he's bored in the game. He's sick of the passive gameplay. I can't blame him there. He wants to constantly shake things up as Tucker, which is why I find him good TV. Isn't necessarily good gameplay, no. But I also can't blame him for wanting a move to be made this week because Cedric has been so passive with his HOH, trying to keep his hands clean this week, trying to take the easy way out. Tucker's plan today is that since he won veto, he doesn't want to use the veto on himself. He wants to use the veto on Angela, take down Angela. It gets Angela in his good graces and maybe some of the other guys' good graces. And then he wants Cedric to nominate Quinn, get Quinn out before he can use his power. It's a smart move in that sense, if he could actually gather the votes to get Quinn out if Quinn is left on the block. There is, of course, the AI competition. So if Tucker were, in this scenario, to take Angela off the block, it's Tucker versus Kenny versus Quinn. Tucker thinks he and Kenny have proved to be two of the best competitors in the house. Not wrong. They've each won something. Tucker's won 2 things now. But Kenny's also been very close in a lot of these competitions. So that would leave Quinn possibly staying on the block. And then it is Quinn versus one of them. Would Quinn go home in those scenarios? It's very possible. Quinn has all these alliances in the house. And some of it's his own fault because Even last night, he's volunteering Leah in an alliance that nobody else in that alliance know Leah's supposed to be in. So Quinn goes out of his way sometimes with these alliances to bring people in when it's not a prior discussion with other people that's supposed to be in those alliances. But like I said, most of these alliances are fake anyway. But a lot of people do come to Quinn sometimes to pull him into alliances, which is why at this point he's aligned with the whole house in many different ways. And he's not doing a very good job with that, in my opinion. But would having these relationships save him this week if he's on the block? I think that is possible as well. We'll have to see how the week plays out. That's if Quinn is even nominated in the first place. Kenny's been trying to rally the guys. There's already that alliance with Kenny, Tucker, and Cedric that I talked about the other day that I think is just dumb because, Cedric, nothing says a solid alliance like Cedric being in an alliance with two people that he nominated this week. So I think that's just dumb. But Kenny's also in his anti-women campaign right now. He thinks the women are creating this big alliance, which has been discussed by the women, but it's another fake alliance. But I think that's finally given Kenny a drive in this game. We saw in the episode he finally got the edit that he's a quitter. They didn't do that good of a job to show Kenny as a quitter, but at least they finally mentioned it, that he's been weak this whole time, missing his family, shouldn't have been cast in the first place. But yeah, Kenny does seem to have a purpose now that he could have his little guy alliance starting. Maybe Cam being brought into that alliance now too. I think, however, some of the girls are seeing that is developing, that Tucker's getting closer to Kenny, that Kenny's close to Cedric. And I think it's kind of making Kenny a target this week, which I hope Kenny goes home this week. As much as I dislike Quinn, and if Quinn is put up on the block, will my opinion change and I want Quinn out before he uses power because he's been stupid, keeping it a secret, or not keeping it a secret. I could change my view on that. I could maybe want Quinn out over Kenny, depending on how the week progresses, if Quinn is on the block. But of course I want Kenny out right now. He's been boring, very bad casting decision, and I am glad that the girls are kind of talking about voting him out this week if he remains on the block come Thursday night. Another quick aside, today Chelsea proved to be right about the whole Cam and Leah connection, like I've talked about in the past where Chelsea is concerned. At the end of the day, whether Chelsea is attracted to Cam or was attracted to Cam, she's been playing this game as a gamer, and she's seen that if Cam's supposed to be her ally, Cam being this close to Leah, who's playing him with her flirty game, she should, try and put an end to that. And today, Cam gave Leah some information that Cedric was considering the renom being Leah or MJ, and Leah told that to Chelsea, so that information got back to Chelsea. So she was proven right that Cam is kind of maybe giving a little too much information to Leah, and Chelsea went back to Cedric with that information that that Cam could be, that Leah's a threat. Chelsea's still pushing for Leah to be the renom as well, so there's that possibility, I guess, as well. Also, the big discussion of today and yesterday was, should MJ just be put on the block because she has the power, make her use the power this week. That's kind of what the house has been pushing Cedric to do before Tucker's idea today. So that's yet another possibility for Cedric. Cedric kind of sees that MJ might protect Cedric going forward if he doesn't nominate her this week. And maybe that's possible. That is a game connection Cedric can make. All in all, though, I think Cedric's HOH, as I mentioned last time, playing it way too safe, and it's kind of making for a more messy week now than it could have been had he just targeted Leah or MJ, a bigger target for his game possibly, because Leah's not going to work with Cedric. Now Cedric can maybe make that connection with MJ going forward, but we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, I'm not impressed with Cedric as HOH, as I've stated last time, but Tucker's at least trying to make this week far more interesting. And some of the girls painting a bigger target on Kenny, Kenny going home this week would be good for the game overall and the feeds overall because he's been such a non-player, kind of dragging down the feeds at times. But yeah, there's a lot to be left discussed tonight. I don't think Cedric knows what he wants to do because I don't think Cedric wants to make that big of a splash like Tucker wants him to, because he's been playing this week safe so far. Why won't he stay that course? But we'll see how it plays out, and I will update tomorrow after the veto ceremony.